All right. Welcome to the sweat, ladies and gentlemen. I am Emerson Lotzia. That is Jessie, Coffield. You have fantasy football questions. We have answers. You have sports betting questions.
Definitely.
We have answers.
Well, our experts have answers.
We have the people who have the answers.
We have the people who have the answers, and this is how you can find us and ask us all those questions. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I think I have them all. You have fingers. Start typing those questions. We're going to get to as many as we can. And as a special treat on Facebook, we'll be asking you guys questions. Yeah. Mixing it up. Those will pop up on the screen, and then you can answer them. It's going to be cool. We'll reference them.
It's like interactive. On the internet.
It's like we're on your Facebook.
Yeah, we're putting you guys to work. We're going to put our panel to work too. Yeah. Who do we have?
DraftKings contributors, Gary and Thorne and Greg Ehrenberg, who are going to be joining us right now. Hey, guys.
Hey, everybody.
Hey. So Emerson really has the clock just changed energy this morning.
Yeah. He's got.
Not gonna lie, man.
He's had some coffee.
I feel very fresh. Yes, and about 5 cups of coffee.
Yeah.
What do you guys say we rip through the 1 o'clock slate of games? You up for that? Good.
Definitely.
We're gonna do it. Okay. All right. Colts 1-point favorite in Pittsburgh. Can the Steelers hold serve at home, Greg?
So, I don't understand why the spread in this game is so close. Like, I understand the Steelers played pretty well last week, but it was a game against the Dolphins. The defense has looked better since trading for Minkah Fitzpatrick. But still, the Colts have been the better team for pretty much the entire season. The Colts are missing T.Y. Hilton, except their team is built around their offensive line, the run game, the defense. All of that should still be intact, so I think the Colts should be a bigger favorite in this spot.
Gary, and what do you think? Your Dolphins almost got the job done. They look good for like a quarter.
Yeah, 20 minutes or so, they held their own, and, then they blew things like they like to do. But, no, I actually kind of feel the opposite way here. I do think the Colts are a better team than the Steelers on most weeks, but I also think the Colts do occasionally suffer from letdown spots, and we kind of already saw this in week 4 when they played the Raiders, a game they also didn't have T.Y. Hilton and some other defensive players. Today, they also don't have Pierre Desir, who's their best cornerback, and this is a pass defense that's been pretty bad the past 3 weeks, even with Desir active. So I think there are some holes here, and the fact the Colts are 0-4-1 ATS their past 5 games against a team with a losing record, I just don't feel good about the Colts in this spot.
All right, the total for this one is set at 41. Gary, do you like the over or the under here?
I like the slight over. Again, I just don't have a lot of faith in the Colts defense. They've been really bad against the pass in recent weeks. They're giving up over 8 yards per attempt in the past 4 weeks. They've given up 4 300-yard passers so far this season. I just think that particular aspect of the Colts game gets a little too much credit, and I think both these offenses are capable. So I think we can get over a relatively low number here.
Greg, can they get over this number?
So they can. I lean towards the under. However, I don't have a lot of confidence in it. The number's really low, but I do think it's going to be a low-paced game. I think it's going to be low scoring. I think that the Colts are going to really make an effort to try to run the ball more, especially with T.Y. Hilton out. And then I think the Steelers, we haven't seen them really open up the playbook to let Mason Rudolph throw the ball very much this year. So I think they're going to very much have a run-heavy game. So overall, I think there's not going to be a lot of plays in this game, going to be low scoring, but the total's also so low that it wouldn't be shocking if it's over.
Gary and Greg just mentioned T.Y. Hilton's out, so you have any interest in Zach Pascal or Chester Rogers? Pascal, 4,100. I believe Rogers is $1,000 cheaper.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily hate having some exposure to Pascal. I think he's fine. He's shown us flashes at least this season, and obviously the last time T.Y. Hilton wasn't playing, we saw him take on a major role in this offense. But at the same time, the Colts just don't utilize their wide receivers all that much, even when T.Y. Hilton is playing. They have the 5th fewest targeted passes to wide receivers so far this season. The Steelers, to their credit, have given up the 2nd fewest passes directed at opponent wide receivers so far this season. So I think really the beneficiaries here are the tight ends, Marlon Mack in the passing game, the other running backs. I don't think either one of these guys necessarily has a monster game.
All right, Greg, with T.Y. Hilton out, who benefits?
So I don't mind playing Jack Doyle in this spot. As for the wide receivers, I just don't feel confident investing any of my money in them. Like, they're very cheap. It wouldn't shock me if somebody had a good game. But what's the legitimate upside here? The Colts don't throw the ball that much. As Gary said, they don't usually target the wide receivers all that much when they are throwing the ball. So to me, do I really want to make an investment in somebody like Pascal when, what's he going to score in a good game? Like 8 or 9 fantasy points, that's fine, but it's not winning anybody a GPP. Jack Doyle on a slate where tight ends are a little bit hard to roster, there aren't many great plays. It wouldn't shock me if he ends up finding the end zone. That he's somebody who historically has been targeted that part of the field a lot by the Colts, especially with Eric Ebron out. So I think he would be the guy to target, and not really all that much interest in the Colts passing game.
All right, Redskins at the Bills. We got Buffalo, an 11-point home favorite. I mean, do we expect them to cover here, Greg?
Yeah, I think I do, just because it's so hard for me to see how the Redskins are going to score the ball in this game. So for that, I lean towards the Bills. Bills have one of the best defenses in the league, and they were really good last year also. I think they finished second overall in DVOA, so they're a unit that usually tends to get a little bit overlooked. Just the question I have is, will Josh Allen be able to prevent making mistakes? Because a lot of times where the Bills don't cover these spreads is because Josh Allen may be throwing pick sixes or throwing interceptions when they get down in the red zone. So this should be a really low-scoring game. But I favor the Bills by a decent amount.
Garion, are the Bills going to cover this spread?
I'm sort of as skeptical as Greg seems. I will take Buffalo here because there's just so many question marks about Dwayne Haskins' play. I know it's a small sample, but he's looked horrendous whenever he's taken the field so far this year, and Buffalo does have a very good defense. But the Bills, they don't do as great a job covering at home as you would assume. We're led to believe they have this incredible home field advantage, but when it comes to the spread, they're just 2-5 at home ATS in their past 7 home games. This is a big number for a game with a total as low as this particular matchup. So I'll take the Bills, but this is probably more of a stay away for me.
You just mentioned the total. That is 37.5, Gary. And so which way are you leaning?
I'm going to take the under. Again, for Haskins, small sample. We can all understand that. But he is actually averaging negative 1.8 adjusted net passing yards per attempt so far this season. I didn't know that was possible. So thank you for Dwayne Haskins for opening up my mind in ways that I didn't think it could be opened up. In terms of points per drive, we're talking about Washington, who scores the 3rd fewest points per drive in the NFL, and Buffalo, who scores the 8th fewest points per drive. So 2 bad offenses. As Greg mentioned, an offense helmed by Josh Allen. You never quite know what's going to happen with that. I think the under is pretty safe here.
Gary and the people at home disagree with you. 56% voting that they are thinking the over hits. Greg, do you agree with the people, or do you agree with that Garion guy?
I agree with that Garion guy. The other thing, too, if we ask the public on overs or unders for every game, wouldn't it be almost like all of them leaning towards the over?
No,
that's not
we have
science.
an educated audience.
That's
they know
not
what they're
science.
doing.
You're not a doctor.
No, I'm not a doctor, but I do play one on TV. Here's the deal with this game. The biggest concern I would have is, are there going to be defensive touchdowns? Because I don't think either offense is really going to be able to move the ball all that well. Obviously, the Bills, I would lean more towards having success than the Redskins. But Haskins has been so bad this year that what if he just throws a couple of pick sixes? Because we've seen this happen before in really low total Bills games. Like, I think this happened one game last year where they played against the Dolphins where the total was like 36 or something like that. And there ended up being 2 defensive touchdowns and 1 long defensive run back that ended up leading to a touchdown. So just because the total is so low, I wouldn't bet on it, but I lean towards the under, and I think that the defenses make for good DFS plays.
All right, let's actually talk about the Bills DST. Most expensive on the slate, $3,800. Do you think it's worth playing them in this matchup, Garion?
I think if you can find the money, sure, they're in a good spot. But like Greg mentioned, the big takeaway here is that you can just play the Redskins as the cheapest defense on the slate for $1,800, and it just makes a whole lot of things work really well. If you have a Washington defense Jalen Samuels lineup, you can get Christian McCaffrey in there. You can pay up for Russell Wilson if you feel like it. So I think Washington is actually kind of the more enticing play between the two of these.
Greg, is it worth playing that Bills DST in this one?
Yeah, I think the Bills defense is okay to roster, but like Aaron said, I think the better value is the Redskins defense. They're so cheap. They're playing a very mistake-prone Josh Allen at quarterback, and really all it takes is a couple sacks, maybe an interception, and you're well on your way to hitting value with the defense and opening up a ton of salary to really pay up for whoever you want, which is something we want to do on this slate because there is Dalvin Cook, there is Christian McCaffrey. There are high-end guys we want to get into lineups that are really expensive, and I think the easiest way to do that with legitimate upside is with the Redskins defense.
Greg, Bears at the Eagles. Do you expect Philadelphia to cover as a 4-point favorite?
So I do in this spot. I know that the Eagles have struggled a little bit and they've been inconsistent at times. The secondary has been an issue for them. With that said, they're going up against Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah.
So if we look at the Eagles' defense, which is the Eagles' weakness on defense, which is their secondary and covering top receivers, I don't know that Trubisky's going to be able to exploit that weakness. So I think that really puts the Eagles at an advantage in this spot. I think that the Bears are basically going to struggle to move the ball against anybody with Trubisky as quarterback. So I like the Eagles here.
Gary, is it an easy choice for you?
Yeah, I'm basically just going to echo what Greg said. Both these teams have struggled, and the Eagles haven't been the most consistent team in the NFL this season, but at the very least, they have the upside. They have the potential to be functional on offense, which I just don't think the Bears can even get to that level where I consider there being a chance they score like 20, 25 points in this game. And the big reason is Mitch Trubisky. Of all qualified quarterbacks, he's averaging the fewest yards per completion, just 8.7, which is horrendously low. If you can't take advantage of the glaring weakness of the Eagles defense, you're just not going to beat the Eagles.
Okay, I mean, Gary, not a lot of faith in that Bears offense, so game total is 41.5. Do you want to go under that?
Yeah, I think you have to go under it. Again, it's a pretty low total. We could have some weird stuff happen in this game. All three of these games are very similar, actually, in terms of game flow and possible game script. But yeah, I think Trubisky himself keeps this game under the number.
Greg, over or under?
Yeah, I agree with the under. I can't bet the over in good faith in any game that Mitch Trubisky's playing in, just because there's potential for him to lay a total stinker. The one thing I think is really weird that I brought up before also is, why isn't Mitch Trubisky running the ball anymore? Like, that was where he was effective in the past. That's where he brought fantasy upside, and that's just not a part of his game anymore. And we're deep enough into the season where I don't really feel any reason it's going to come back. So as long as Trubisky is forced to throw the ball and isn't running it, the Bears are going to struggle to score.
Gary, and it is official, Deshaun Jackson is going to play first time in 2 months. So do you like him in this spot? How much?
Not really all that much. Again, if we're talking about a game we think is going to go under the number, Deshaun Jackson is a big play wide receiver. That's really how he gets his fantasy points and how he becomes someone who's viable in a GPP. Based off those big chunk plays. The Bears just don't allow big chunk plays. They're one of 6 defenses this season allowing fewer than 20-plus yard passing plays to their opponents. He's also still relatively expensive for someone who hasn't played in a very long time. $5,200 is a reasonable amount of cash. Like, if we're talking about someone in the mid-5s, I'd rather just go with like Robbie Anderson at 5.5. So no, I won't be playing Deshaun Jackson this week.
But Greg, let's think. This guy, week 1, 38 fantasy points before that injury.
Yeah, and then week 2, 0 fantasy points, where he played a little bit, got hurt, and hasn't played since. So I understand the upside for Jackson. I just don't think this is the spot. Like, my hope is that he kind of doesn't do much of anything today, and then his price comes way down, and then maybe we could roster him in the future against one of these terrible divisional rival teams like the Giants or maybe the Redskins. And that would be a spot where there's a lot more upside for Jackson. In this spot, I don't really see it. But in the future, I definitely think he's going to be somebody to roster, especially because we've seen that upside that he has with Carson Wentz in week 1.
Hey, Gary, and we're going to take a question from Facebook right now. Joseph Larless on Facebook wants to know, Brandon Allen, Cortland Sutton stack with Denver. What do you think?
I would not be that risky. That is a courageous move, but I think that, especially with Cleveland's struggles to stop the run and the fact that the Broncos, arguably their 2 best players on offense are both running backs, I think we're going to see Lindsey and Royce Freeman over 15 touches apiece in this game. I think if the Broncos can avoid passing the football, they're going to try actively doing that.
I saw you laugh there, Greg. You agreeing with Garion?
Yeah, for sure, especially with Brandon Allen, somebody who was not really heralded coming out of college, now making his first start. Like, it's such a weird kind of spot for a quarterback. Like, what are they going to do with him in his first game? I agree with Garion. They're probably going to run the ball. Even if he does throw, there's no guarantees he's going to be effective. It's a really difficult Browns defense that he's going up against. So it's a no for me. All
right, good stuff, guys. We're going to get to the other 1 p.m. games on the slate right after this week's Parlay of the Week. Let's check it out. What's up, everybody? I'm Jessie Coffield from DraftKings, and backed by popular demand, this is Kolu. Kolu is going to choose which one of our 3 parlay options is getting their odds boosted. And this week we have 3 sets of underdogs paired up by division. First, we go to the NFC East, where the Giants host division rival Dallas, parlayed with Washington taking on Buffalo. Next, we got the AFC South, where we have the Titans on the road against the Panthers, parlayed with the Jaguars, who will try to take down the Texans. And finally, the AFC West, which has the Broncos attempting to upset the Browns, parlayed with the Chargers hosting the Packers. Last time Kolu was our underdog of the week. The parlay hit. Kolu is our golden goose. He chooses winners. Let's find out who's getting their odds boosted. You ready to choose, buddy? You ready? Are you ready? Go ahead. All right, we have an odds boost. Kolu has spoken. Tennessee and Jacksonville it is.
Time to hit the books when we give you an on-the-ground view of what's happening at DraftKings Sportsbooks across the country. Let's punch up our panel, shall we? Hal Tendler, DraftKings Sportsbook Manager at Resorts Atlantic City. Who else do we have? Nicole Bover, Del Lago Sportsbook Manager, and Andy Crone, Sportsbook Supervisor at Wild Rose Resorts in Emmitsburg, Iowa. Hal, I would like to start with you because you guys are at Resorts and you are celebrating the one-year anniversary of the DraftKings Sportsbook there. What kind of celebration do you guys have planned there?
All right, so today we have a special guest. Randall Cunningham's here. He'll be signing autographs between 12 and 2 o'clock, 12 to 12:45 in the main lobby for the public, and then the VIPs get them from 12:45 to 1:30. And a lot of raffles and giveaways going on.
What teams are getting the most action there for you, Hal?
We got a 5-digit bet on the Minnesota Vikings yesterday, -2.5, and the line has moved on up to 4, as you see now.
All right, Nicole, what about you?
Actually, we have a lot of action on the Bills game for the under. People think it's not going to be a very high-scoring game because it's going to be very defensive on both ends. So we're getting a lot of action on the under for the Bills game.
All right, what about the biggest bet you've seen so far?
The biggest bet we've seen this week was actually Thursday night for the Niners. We had a 5-number wager, and it actually hit because they picked the Niners. That we just have multiple nine. I think I'm cutting out. My internet connection is terrible today.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I've seen better internet connections, but that's okay. We're happy to have you here.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's not your fault. It's the internet's fault. Andy, biggest bet you've seen so far here, ma'am? And Andy's audio is not working. That's okay. Hal, biggest bet you've seen so far?
Again, we saw a 5-digit bet on the Vikings. We did get a nice parlay. We had the Jacksonville, Eagles, Cleveland, and over Seattle, $1,500 parlay to win $8,500, a $10,000 potential payout.
Andy, take two. Go ahead.
Our biggest bet this week was Green Bay at 3.5, and then the guy just came in and got it again this morning at 4.
What about any interesting prop bets?
Our biggest prop bet just came in this morning. Guy took, surprisingly, Lamar Jackson's rushing yards. So it's 60.5 right now.
Okay.
Thinks he's going to make history with the only QB to go 3 straight games with 100-plus rushing.
All right, interesting. Nicole, do you have any interesting prop bets?
To me again.
Yeah.
Actually, like I said before, people are thinking defensive for the Bills game. So a lot of people are taking the first score to be a field goal. So that's the biggest prop bet we've seen today.
Love it, love it. Gentlemen and lady, thanks for always making time for us here on The Sweat. We'll get back to the early slate of games right after Randall Cunningham tells us what makes him so good at Tecmo Bowl. But we are talking with 4-time Pro Bowler Randall Cunningham. He is helping us celebrate the first anniversary of DraftKings Sportsbook at Resorts. So hook us up with your Super Bowl prediction right now. Which teams do you have in the Super Bowl, and who do you have hoisting the Lombardi?
Well, it's definitely going to be between Baltimore and New England. There's no doubt about that, in my opinion, because, there's just something special happening in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the NFC, I'm an Eagle fan, so I got to go with the Eagles.
Really? Right now, they don't look too hot. I mean, I know they pulled out that W in Buffalo.
Yeah, exactly. You go get that road win, it makes a big difference. But, the old saying that the late Buddy Ryan had is you got to win in November and December. So you can do well early, but you got to get to November, December. And we're a gritty team. Philly's a gritty team. We got to get it done when we got to get it done.
So you have faith in Carson Wentz right now?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Because I remember the publicity when I was there. It was like, oh, we don't know what's going to happen. Is he a young guy? Then when I got older, he's over the hill. And it's like, what? We still did well. Because the other guys pick up the piece to the puzzle, and then coaching does well. And Jeffrey Lurie, he knows how to run an NFL team.
So are you calling it a Patriots-Eagles Super Bowl? Are you brave enough to call that?
Whew. No, I'm not brave enough to call the AFC team. I'm brave enough to say I'm pulling for my Eagles regardless, the city of brotherly love. But, I'm pulling for Baltimore. When Lamar Jackson was there with the Heisman, I texted him, called him, said, man, I am so proud of you. And he responded, which a lot of the younger guys, they're kind of trying to make their way.
Yep.
But he responded, so I respect that. And so I'm really a big fan of his.
Yeah, that would be a fun Super Bowl. If you had to pick an MVP right now, who would you go with?
Oh, my gosh.
I know. It is a difficult question.
That's really hard. I couldn't pick because there's so many great ones out there right now, so I just wouldn't even get involved with that. I'll leave it up to you guys.
What about like an Aaron Rodgers Aaron Rodgers kind of come on as of late, but Russell Wilson is this. Go ahead.
Well, it's between those three. I'd say without a doubt. I love Aaron. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks as well. Russell, of course. I haven't gotten to see him on TV as much this year, but those three. And I'm really looking for that running back that's doing the job. But the offenses have shifted so much to this no-huddle offense that the quarterbacks are getting all the praise along with the receivers.
It's true. It is like a quarterback of war, but Christian McCaffrey there in Carolina is unreal right now.
Oh, he's a beast.
Which defensive player did you hate to face the most in your playing days?
Reggie White.
I was going to say, that's what I was going to say. I knew you guys teamed up forever, but then he turned enemy on you.
Yeah, it would be Reggie White and then Wilbur Marshall.
Okay.
With the Chicago Bears, because the dude just looked crazy. He was the perfect size. He looked like just a big, dominating, blown up. Just here I come. I'm going to catch you.
Yeah.
And when he was with Washington, I was thinking, oh my God, I got to go against this guy. And he was a spy against me, and I'm thinking, okay, I got Monty Coleman on one side, and then there's Wilbur right there. I'm thinking, oh, my God, I got to deal with these two guys the whole game.
Catching up with four-time Pro Bowler Randall Cunningham, who is helping us celebrate the first anniversary of DraftKings Sportsbook at Resorts. You ever wish fantasy football was this big early in your playing days?
Say again?
Fantasy football, you know how big it is today. I feel like some people aren't even paying attention to the games or paying attention to fantasy football. Do you ever wish, though, or wonder what it would have been like if it was that big back in your playing days?
Well, it would have been pretty awesome. But with technology nowadays, I think you guys are doing an excellent job with it, and you guys have gone through the roof. And without DraftKings, I mean, what is it? It's kind of like you guys are taking it to a whole nother level.
Yeah. And
you keep us intact, and it's just awesome to see someone who is just pushing fantasy to another level and getting the fans really involved. And I mean, I've seen what's going on, and it blows my mind.
Yeah, we're trying to get people as close as possible to the game.
I did not think it would evolve like it has.
You would have been like a must roster every week with your dual threat ability. I mean, you would have seriously been like a first round pick in fantasy football. You do know that, right?
No, I don't know that, but
I'm telling you, and I'm not an expert, but I'm just telling you. I can't let you go without asking you about Tecmo Bowl here. We all know how I know. Hey, listen. We all know how unstoppable Bo Jackson was. I know technically your name wasn't attached to the position, but you went by the captivating name QB Eagles. How often do people bring up your dominance though in Tecmo Bowl?
I tell you what, when I used to play, people used to talk about the game Tecmo Bowl so much. and the thing that really got me was the Dallas Cowboys back then. Emmett would run for 400 yards on you, and he would run over everybody. But I learned and I played the game so much that I got so good at Tecmo Bowl that I was able to put our backups in, and we would beat the Dallas Cowboys, which was kind of crazy because they were so dominant. But Tecmo Bowl was the game.
Look at that, man. You even took that rivalry to Nintendo, off the field and into Nintendo.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Good for you. Randall Cunningham, good catching up with you. Thanks for celebrating the first anniversary of DraftKings Sportsbook at Resorts.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, back here on the Sweat. Same look with a new great taste. DraftKings contributors Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow, and Jeff Ulrich are on the horn, and for that, we are grateful.
Jets at Dolphins, two very bad teams, but New York is 3.5-point favorite. Steve, do the Dolphins get win number 1?
I think they do. I think there's a path to victory here for the Dolphins. Look, both teams were just absolutely horrendous against the spread. Like Miami, as you would imagine, 0-8. The Jets are 1-6 here. Like, I know that there's a lot of talk that Le'Veon Bell's going to be very much involved in this game after having that discussion with Adam Gase, so maybe they feed the squeaky wheel there, but I just like how Ryan Fitzpatrick goes deep downfield. I like what he does with this offense. This is a much better offense with Ryan Fitzpatrick at the helm here. The Jets secondary has just been so poor, and we'll talk about that in a minute here, but I like the Dolphins in this one.
Okay, where are we going on this one, Jules?
Yeah, I mean, I like the Jets here. We've got Miami just doesn't want to win, and I know that they're starting Fitzpatrick, which tells you that maybe they're trying a little bit, but then you just see the game plan when they get to 14 points against the Steelers and completely fall apart, especially defensively. I think Darnold, obviously that Patriots game, people are still down on him from that, and we're going to be talking about seeing ghosts for a long time, but this is a great matchup for him against this terrible Miami defense. And then Le'Veon Bell could not be in a better spot. It's the worst defense against running backs in terms of fantasy points allowed. And this should be a spot where he gets the ball. So it's going to be ugly. I'm not really putting my faith in the Jets. It's just Miami's going to try and lose this game, especially with the Bengals off this week. Miami needs to keep losing.
All right, Jeff, Miami's going to keep losing in your opinion?
I feel like if there's ever a time to bet the tie in the NFL, this game is it. Like, literally, I feel like both these teams will find a way to lose. I do like Miami to cover the spread. I'll say that. I'm not going to go out and say Miami's going to win, but I do like Miami. The Jets are without Trumaine Johnson, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Preston Williams. I think they can get it going. At the same time, you can't trust Miami to just win this game outright because of the defensive deficiencies Julian just went over. So I like the Dolphins to cover. I do not want any part of money line on this, though.
Apparently, you don't want any part of Minshew magic based off that whiteboard
Free
you
Nick
got there, bud.
Foles!
Yeah, I think Minshew magic is all used up there, buddy. You seen the score today?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I'm telling you what, the Jags had a tough decision if they were going to win this game. Doesn't look like they're going to, so it's okay. Nick Foles is back. He's making a lot of money. On to the next question. The game total is at 42.5. What game were we just talking about?
Jets Dolphins.
Jets and
Miami.
Dolphins.
Okay, yeah, okay. We're talking about this game. Whatever. Yeah. Feels a little high though, does it not, Jules?
I don't know what it feels because all the defenses both stink and the offenses aren't great. And do they want to win or do they want to lose? I don't know. So this is one of the weirdest totals that I just don't have a feel for it. And generally when I do that, I go under because I'm putting my faith in these offenses being bad. But both of the defenses are also so bad. So I'm really telling you not to bet it. But since you're making me answer the question, I guess under.
I'm not making you do anything.
But maybe over.
But our producer is. Okay, wow, under, maybe over. That sounds not great. Jeff, which side do you fall on this total?
I'll take the under.
Thank you.
I'll take the under. Look, these are two bad teams, and the Jets play at one of the slowest paces in the NFL. And Miami might play at like a faster pace, but that's just because they're always going against these good teams and getting blown out. They're probably not going to play at a faster pace today. I actually kind of like the under here for sure.
Steve, don't be like your buddy Julian. Don't be a coward. Pick a side.
I'll take the over on this one. I think that there's a legitimate path for the points to be scored in this one. Like I was saying earlier, like Ryan Fitzpatrick has no fear going down the field with Preston Williams, with Devontae Parker. If Le'Veon Bell is going to get more involved in this game, he's going against one of the worst run defenses in the league. I know that it's two very bad teams. Nobody can discredit that fact. But if there is one thing, is that two bad teams going against each other, at least there's going to be some opportunities to be had there. Like from a fantasy perspective, the Jets are allowing over 31 DraftKings fantasy points over the last 3 weeks. This is a secondary that by far can be beat here. So I kind of like the over in this game.
Who are you playing in this game in DFS, though, Jeff?
I mean, I wouldn't go heavy on anyone, but I do like the wide receivers on both sides, mainly Robbie Anderson and Preston Williams. I mentioned Trumaine Johnson being out. The remaining Jets cornerbacks are all like bottom tier as far as ratings go. So Preston Williams definitely, to me, like is in a spot. His upside is like 100 yards and a touchdown here. I could see that happening today. And Robbie Anderson's similar. I know people like Jameson Crowder because of that like 17 target game he got week one, but Robbie Anderson is the big play threat here, and there's no one in the secondary to really cover him. So Anderson and Preston Williams, both nice big GPP field dart throws for me today.
Steve, not going heavy in this game, but who are you looking at?
I kind of like the pairing of Fitzpatrick and Preston Williams. Like, if you're trying to jam in McCaffrey and Cook, this is a pairing I think that you can do, and definitely in large field tournaments to help afford that. Combined, these guys go for $9,000. That's cheaper than both Cook and McCaffrey's salaries for this week. And with Ryan Fitzpatrick on the field, Preston Williams has a 15.1 ADOT, which is much higher than with Josh Rosen, who, throws about 5 yards and that's it. So I think for a cheap stack that with points that I think is going to be scored in this game, can't get any better than that.
Jules, who are you looking at?
Yeah, I want the cheap guys with big play potential, and those are the guys that Jeff covered. Robbie Anderson, Preston Williams, Devontae Parker. Those are the 3 plays that stand out to me. I do have interest in Le'Veon Bell at 7,700 in a perfect matchup. He should get, maybe the most touches he's seen all season, given where things stand with him and his team. But at the same time, I just don't know if I can risk $8,000 on a play from this game. So that's why I kind of like the cheaper big play guys more.
Yeah, Lev Bell too. Like, you never know what Adam Gase is going to do with usage, so
it's a risk for a lot of money.
I agree with Julian. I don't know why I even talked.
Thanks for coming in, Jeff.
Thank you for speaking, Jeff.
Yep. Quiet.
Awesome. I heard the Steelers were inquiring about Le'Veon Bell too.
That's such a troll. That was nothing but a troll. I feel like there's no way they wanted him back.
Oh, really?
Absolutely no.
That's my opinion. James Conner injured. Okay. Okay, pal.
So let's bring back
All right.
You stay at the desk.
Titans at Panthers. Carolina, no Cam Newton, who's reportedly not even close to returning, even considering heading to the IR, is a 3.5-point favorite. Tennessee's won 2 straight. Should Carolina be favored, Steve?
Yeah, I think they should here. I just don't know how they're going to stop Christian McCaffrey. Like, McCaffrey, aside from that game against the Buccaneers, has just been smashing each and every week here. Carolina's got a pretty good pass rush, too, as well. I think that's not something that we don't really talk about here either. So I just don't have a lot of faith in Ryan Tannehill. I think he's had 2 pretty soft matchups to this point. This is probably the toughest defense that he's faced so far this season here. I just don't see a path to victory for the Titans. So, yeah, I'm definitely on Carolina's side for this one.
Jules, what do you think?
Yeah, I like Carolina here a lot. Their stock is maybe a little bit down because of the blowout in San Francisco last week, 51-13. I think we all thought that one was going to be closer, and Carolina was good enough to compete in that game. But look, Tennessee's been fine. Ryan Tannehill's definitely an upgrade from Marcus Mariota. Got the offense going a little bit, but it's still nothing special here, and they've been grinding out some okay wins at home against not very good teams. I think going to Carolina against a really good defense, against one of the best players in the NFL and the ball is in his hands in Christian McCaffrey, and a solid quarterback in Kyle Allen, I just think most of the things here point in favor of the Panthers at home.
Jeffrey?
I'll take the complete opposite side. I like Tennessee. They're actually one of my favorite bets, plus 3.5. It's a good run defense. I mean, they don't need to shut down Christian McCaffrey completely, but look, Kyle Allen, the blooms kind of come off the rose for Kyle Allen last few games. I mean, 3 interceptions against San Francisco. Look, I know the Carolina rush defense the Carolina pass rush is extremely good. It's best in the NFL, but without Mario Addison in this spot, and I think the Titans are going to be able to run the ball. I mean, Carolina's given up 5 yards per carry. All Tennessee has to do is give the ball to Derrick Henry, keep this close, and keep it within 3 points. I like that a lot. I like Tennessee in this spot.
All right, the game total for this one is just 42.5. Low number, but could we still see the under hit here, Jules?
Yeah, this is another tough total, I guess, for me to put a finger on, because I could see the game being a defensive game, and I could see both of these offenses kind of putting up some points. But the bottom line is that these teams prefer to play slower, or at least Tennessee, rather, would prefer to play that way. They're obviously going to try and pound the ball with Derrick Henry, and like Jeff said, Kyle Allen has regressed in recent games, so I think there's a lot more reason to lean on Christian McCaffrey in this spot. So I think with those 2 guys being the focal points of this game, that means a lot of running, that means a lot of the clock burning, so I lean with the under here.
Jeff, you want to lean with the under?
I want to make fun of Julian for being a coward again and not really giving an answer. But this,
you can't bet everything, Jeff. But I give my opinion where I'm leaning, and if it's something I'm betting on, then you'll know.
I will challenge that notion that you can't bet everything, Julian. Come to my house. Look, I do feel like this total is actually set perfectly right. I think 23-20. I would lean the under here. Tennessee's got a little bit of
lean. Come on, Jeff. You got to bet it.
Fine, I will. So, a little bit of kicker issues on Tennessee. Kyle Allen again, not really producing lately. So I would lean under here.
The kids are fighting again. All right, guys, relax. Steve, where are you going?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the under here, too, as well. I think if there is a chance for the over to hit, it's really going to hinge on Derrick Henry, because if there's going to be a way for the Titans to score, Henry's going to be the way to do so. We just saw the Panthers give up over 200 rushing yards to the 49ers. We've seen them give over 100 rushing yards 3 other occasions so far this season. I don't think they're going to get it done through the air. Kyle Allen has definitely had his had a couple bad weeks. We haven't seen him throw a touchdown for over the past 2 weeks here, so that's definitely a concern there too as well. So if Henry doesn't have a good game, there's no chance that I'm going to see the over on this one, so I'm going to stick with the under.
Let's go Vikings at Chiefs. Minnesota, a 4-point favorite with no Patrick Mahomes.
None.
So, well, they cover, Steve.
Yeah, I really like the Vikings defense here. I feel like that they're one that have been consistent all season long. You know, Matt Moore really doesn't do it for me. I know he is surrounded by a bunch of weapons with guys like Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, but I just don't see them doing well against this Vikings secondary. Maybe they can get something going on the ground, but we've seen LaShawn McCoy have issues with ball handling. Damian Williams has not been the guy that we thought he was coming into the year, so I think the Vikings can cover in this spot.
Julian, the people have spoken on Facebook and overwhelmingly think that Minnesota will cover. Do you?
I do think Minnesota will cover, and that overwhelming opinion shows on DK Sportsbook. This one's already moved to 5.5, very quickly. So I think that this was something where when Mahomes was in question, I think in some places you could find this spread around 2.5. That would be great to have it at, but kind of like the Packers coming into Arrowhead last week, they were, around 3, moved up to 4. I think they closed at 5.5 where this one is. I think the Vikings can get this one done by a touchdown. So no matter what number you have, I think you're going to wind up covering. But you want to get that bet in if you like Minnesota because they're being hammered by public and sharp money, which means it's just going to keep moving.
Jeff, do you side with our very intelligent viewers?
I do not, actually. I like the Chiefs in this spot. Kirk Cousins is 3-6-1 in outdoor games with the Vikings, straight up. It's Chiefs. Andy Reid produced winning teams with Alex Smith for years. I mean, Matt Moore is basically Alex Smith light. I don't really have a fear in this spot of taking 5.5 points with the Chiefs. I think this is actually a really nice bet. Whenever you see that much money going in on one side, you got to wonder, look, Vikings at -4, -3.5, sure, but you're getting a different number now, 5.5. I think that's too high for the Vikings.
All right, guys, good stuff. We're making moves to the 4 o'clock slate of games coming up right after this Sunday night showdown preview. It's the Sunday Night Showdown presented by KFC. I'm Jessie Coffield along with Ben Zwyman and Steve Buchanan. Guys, big one this Sunday, Patriots visiting the Ravens, 2 of the best teams in the AFC. On one side, you have a high-flying offense led by Lamar Jackson. On the other side, arguably the NFL's best defense. I mean, this is a tough one, and not just because I can barely focus because these look so good. Big decision to make here. I mean, who's your Colonel's pick for the captain spot? Ben, who's it going to be?
I've been using this strategy a lot in Showdown, and I think you have to go with the Patriots defense, right? You mentioned they're one of the best defenses in the league, probably the best unit in the league. The Ravens are coming off a bye, but Lamar Jackson, second-year quarterback, Bill Belichick normally does very well against those types of situations. And I think the Patriots are going to do a good job game planning to contain him and make him throw the ball downfield, which is what they want because they have such a good secondary. So I think that'll play to their strengths. They're also favored on the road, which isn't normally something that we see too often. So I like the Patriots D in the captain spot.
Steve, who are you going with?
Yeah, so kind of like what Ben is going off of. If the Patriots are going to try to force Lamar Jackson to throw the ball, I'm going to go with the guy he always targets, which is Mark Andrews, who has 55 targets on the year, which is by far the most on the team. That's been Lamar Jackson's favorite target to go to. It's not a great spot for him. The Patriots secondary has been dynamic, but if you're going to take the guy who's at least getting the targets, only good things can come.
Okay, so we have your captain, but give me another guy who's going to make your roster on Sunday, a side dish, if you will, Steve.
Yeah, it's going to be Mark Ingram. If they do end up getting down by the goal line, he's the guy they're going to try to hand it off to. 36% share in the red zone carry. So if you're going to try to sneak one in there, I think Mark Ingram is the guy that you can go to.
Ben, who are you pairing with your captain?
I also have a running back, but I'm going with Sony Michel of the Patriots. I think he's getting a lot of carries lately. We were a little concerned about him earlier in the season, but he's got at least 19 carries in each of the past 3 games. I think if the Patriots get up on the road, they're going to give him the ball. They're going to force feed him. And like Steve said, Mark Ingram's a goal line guy. So is Sony Michel. So normally that traditional pairing of the defense and running back, that's what I'm looking to do.
All right, guys, that'll do it for the latest edition of the Sunday Night Series presented by KFC. Try the new KFC wings today with your choice of buffalo, honey barbecue, or Nashville hot sauces. They're finger-licking good.
All right, welcome back to DraftKings The Sweat. Everything's going swell this morning. Time to make our move to the 4 o'clock games right now with our panel.
Gary and Thorne.
Thank you.
I believe.
And Greg Ehrenberg.
Greg Ehrenberg, yeah, they are here. All right, Gary and the Bucs, Seahawks, Seattle, 5.5-point favorite at home. Is that number too low? And it might have moved, I think.
I think it's too high, honestly. I'm kind of worried about how public a team Seattle is this week. And I sort of mentioned this with Buffalo. They're another one of these teams that gets a lot of buzz about them just being a great team at home. And while that might be true across the last couple seasons, against the spread, they've actually dropped their last 5 games at home. Look, it really isn't an ideal matchup for Seattle, because if there's one team stubborn enough to stick to their running game against the Bucs defense that is number 1 against the run by DVOA, it's Pete Carroll. He has shown time and time again, he and Schottenheimer, that they just will not pass the ball, despite whatever Russell Wilson does, however much MVP buzz this guy's going to get, they're still going to run the ball 55 times a game. And it just doesn't really match up for me. So I'm scared of the Seahawks here.
Greg, is this number too low?
Yeah, so to back up what you were saying before you asked Gary and Jessie, is the number has dropped to 4.5 now. Seahawks favored by. So for this spot, I do agree with Gary in that the run game with the Seahawks and how much they've pushed to run the ball, it's an issue in this spot because the Buccaneers have the number 1 run defense in the league by DVOA. The Buccaneers are very good against the run, and they're not very good at all against the pass. So it would definitely be in the Seahawks' interest to try to throw the ball here. The one concern that I really have with this spot is the Buccaneers are kind of like the sort of team that's king of the backdoor covers. Like Jameis Winston will throw 1 million interceptions in the game, and then it gets into garbage time. He throws like 2 or 3 fourth quarter touchdowns when the game's already well out of reach. So just because of the way the Buccaneers play and also how conservative we've seen the Seahawks be at times against a really elite run defense, I think this sets up for a potential backdoor cover for Tampa Bay.
All right, game total in Seattle, 51.5, I believe, the highest on the slate. Can these two get there, Greg? Or is this total moved as well?
Yeah, so I think they can get there, in particular because of how bad the Buccaneers are against the pass. I think that if the Seahawks do decide to open up the passing game and throw the ball more, they should have a lot of success in that facet. And the other side, too, is that we see this with the Buccaneers. They can't run the ball at all. They're going to be throwing the ball, especially if the Seahawks get ahead. They're going to be throwing to try to keep up. So I could see this really being a shootout. It's a very good game to stack, I think, for DFS.
Okay, Gary, where do you set?
Yeah, just because I have fears that Carroll and Schottenheimer will be stubborn doesn't mean they won't be successful when they do decide to throw the football. And there is a game script here where the Buccaneers get up early and force them to throw the football. And I think in that scenario, we get to this over very easily. The Buccaneers constantly have massive numbers attached to their games, and they've hit the last 5. They're very good at going over because, as Greg said, they're backdoor cover machines. And when they get into the second half, their pace of play is among the highest rates in all of football because they're usually down, and they're not afraid to throw the football either. So I do think we get there.
All right, Russell Wilson, the highest priced quarterback on the slate. I mean, do you like him and his wide receivers, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf here, Greg?
Yeah, I do. I think, like I said before, stack this game up. I prefer Lockett to Metcalf. I think there's a lot more big play upside with Lockett. And then it's just also that really poor Tampa Bay Buccaneers pass defense. 26th in the league in DVOA. They're number 1 in run DVOA. So it's in the Seahawks' interest to throw the ball. If they open it up and throw the ball, they could have a lot of success. And then coming back, we know the Buccaneers are going to be playing at a high pace. We know they're going to be throwing the ball. This is a game that we could see kind of be like a 35-31, some really high score.
Gary, and we got 80% of people saying they're playing Russell Wilson. Do you like him? Up to 83. Yeah, the people love him.
I don't know if I like him at 80% ownership.
Yeah, I don't. If we're gonna get to 80% ownership, which is that's really kind of the interesting debate on this slate, is how many people are gonna be paying up at running back, and if enough people are paying $10,000 or $9,500 for Dalvin Cook, are enough people going to want to pay up for the top price quarterback? Because it's really easy to make the case why Russell Wilson is a good play. We just said this game was going to go over 51 points. He's going up against the team that has allowed the most DraftKings points to quarterbacks on this slate. He himself is averaging 0.64 fantasy points per dropback, the highest rate of any NFC quarterback in the league. So, yeah, he's a good play. And I think despite all these people saying they would play him, when it actually comes to putting lineups together, I do think his ownership is going to suffer a little bit because people would rather pay up at other positions than quarterback.
All right, Gary, and the Lions are out in Oakland. You got the Raiders favored by 3. Do they cover against this Lions team, though? It's been kind of hard to read this season.
I don't think they do. This is a weird game featuring weird teams, but the Lions are 5-1 ATS their last 6 games on the road. The Raiders historically have been pretty good at home, but we don't have a lot of data with that this season, obviously. I don't know. I just look at what the Raiders have done this year, and obviously they've been better than a lot of people have expected. But at the end of the day, their wins are still against Denver, the Bears, and a Colts team that was featuring, or missing, excuse me, maybe 3 of their 4 best players the week they actually got to face this team. I just think the Lions have shown me more. And in a contest where I think things could get a little nonsensical at times, just give me the team with the points. So I'll take the Lions here.
Greg, who are you taking?
Yeah, I like the Lions too. I agree that it is a little hard to get a read on both these teams. Like, I think it's really hard to confidently say that we know how good the Raiders or the Lions are. With that said, I have a slight lean towards the Lions at 14th in DVOA versus 17th in DVOA for the Raiders. And also, I just have more faith in the passing game of the Lions than any other facet of this game. I think that Kenny Golladay could have a big game. I think that Matt Stafford could have a really big game. They make sense to stack. So I like the Lions side of the game. And the Raiders, I think, is a team that probably regresses in the second half of the season.
Game total 51 in this one, Greg, another high one. Do you like the over here?
Yeah, I do, and I think this is another good game to stack. We went over the last game as a good game to stack. This is probably the other game. I think these are the 2 that really make sense to stack today. Both the pass defenses could be exploited. For the Raiders side of the game, Tyrell Williams makes sense. From the Lions side of the game, Stafford makes sense. I think that Marvin Jones makes sense. There's a lot of guys here that I think are worth playing in the passing game. It's another one that I think could be a pretty high-scoring shootout.
Gary, and you going with Greg? You think it's going over?
Yeah, and history kind of backs it up. Recent history, anyway. Both these teams are 4-1 to the over their last 5 games, and it makes a lot of sense when you look at the, I want to say capability of these defenses, but there's not a lot they're capable of unless it's giving up points. They're both bottom 5 in the league in points allowed per drive and yards allowed per drive. There's really nothing about either of these units that inspires a lot of confidence. So I think 2 above-average offenses can definitely get this done today.
All right, Greg, you mentioned it's a good game to stack. How many of Matt Stafford's wide receivers will you be targeting?
Yeah, all of them. And I think you could even double stack this game, like, because the prices aren't too ridiculous. I think you could go Stafford with Golladay and Marvin Jones and maybe even run it back with like Tyrell Williams and Darren Waller and just try to get as much exposure to this game as possible in individual lineups. I think that offers a lot of upside. There's shootout potential here. It makes a lot of sense. Very high upside play.
All right, Gary, what would your strategy be?
Yeah, similar. I want as much exposure to this game as possible. I think Marvin Jones is a really interesting name at $6,000. He's reasonably priced, and he's probably going to see a lot of Trayvon Mullen as his direct competition and direct matchup in terms of the Oakland secondary. And Mullen hasn't played a ton. He's getting the start because they traded Garon Conley, but he's given up 2.63 yards per route covered so far this season, which is the second highest mark in all of football. So clearly, it's a pretty nice matchup. Add on to that since the beginning of week 5, wide receivers have averaged 11.5 yards per target against the Raiders, which is easily the highest mark in the league. Golladay, all these guys, they're just in a very good spot.
Gary, and we have some viewer questions. Zach Buswell wants to know Rodgers and Jones stack or Carr and Waller?
I actually think I would go with Carr and Waller. I just like how that works with the prices. And also, I mean, Waller's a super expensive tight end, but tight end's a weird, risky position this week, and I think it's okay to just say, I want an elite guy for week 9.
All right, so built off that question, Dylan Schmittler asking, Greg, who's your favorite value tight end? Say you can't pay up for some of the good guys.
Yeah, so I do think Waller makes a lot of sense. If I'm going cheap, I think I'm going to go with Zach Ertz. I understand the matchup is really difficult against the Bears, except Ertz has historically been one of the best receiving tight ends in the league. We're looking at him priced all the way down at $4,700. I think that there is a lot of upside there for that price. Tight end's a tough position to fill, and I think that he's the guy who has the most upside per dollar.
Good stuff, guys. We got 2 more late afternoon games to hit on. That's coming up after Mike Francesa delivers his Sunday picks.
How about the Bills? Big home favorites against the reeling Redskins, 9.5 points. I'm assuming you would take the points here, so you can tell me if you disagree, but really also what I want to know is, would you go over or under the 37 total points?
I won't take the points, later points, for this reason. I think the Bills bounced back off their worst showing of the year. They got run on last week, so I know the head coach will be very, very nasty. Their defense will be on edge. Their defense will score. and I think they will cover the 9.5. As far as the over, I'll go under the 37, but over, and that's a tight fit, but I'll go over for Buffalo, and I'll go it's like 20-3 or something like that.
All right, how about the Vikings at the West-leading Chiefs? Minnesota has won 4 in a row. Kansas City has really struggled at home. I know you love Dalvin Cook. Are you going to take his team here?
This is a straight Mahomes game, though. If Mahomes plays, I think they win. If Mahomes doesn't play, I think the Vikings win.
Okay, so we find out soon enough with that one.
I'm getting the feeling Mahomes is going to sit one more week.
Wouldn't be the terrible idea, right? Get him healthy.
Yeah,
There's no need to push him.
I don't think they're ready to play him yet, and I think Moore didn't play badly. He really didn't.
No.
They'll have a chance to win this game, but if Mahomes is on the field, I think the Chiefs win.
For the Jets to be favored, they would almost have to be playing in South Beach, and wouldn't you know?
Both are
true.
The only place they could be favored. The
Yeah.
only place they could be favored is in Miami. There's no other way, which shows you just how unbelievably bad
the
Dolphins are. You can't make the Dolphins. You cannot be an odds maker and make the Dolphins favorite. It's impossible.
No, you can't
because you
do
know
it.
they're not even trying to win. So I mean, from that standpoint, it is very difficult to do, and that's the only way the Jets could be favored here. The Jets could screw this up. I mean, they could screw up a one-car funeral. So I mean, they could definitely screw this up. But I gotta figure that Miami will stay to its design, which is to lose them all, and they'll figure a way to lose them.
Brian Flores must be having so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they already have a jersey for Tua in the locker room, I think.
Bears are going to try to avoid a 4th straight loss. They're in Philadelphia. No surprise, Eagles are favored. Do you think Chicago, though, gets back on track?
No, I think the Bears have big problems, quarterback problems. I think the Eagles got a big lift last week. I think the Eagles are going to get better and better as the season goes on. I think the Eagles are a playoff team. I think the Eagles win the game.
Colts and Steelers. This one's basically a pick'em in Pittsburgh, which to me seems disrespectful to the South-leading Colts, quite frankly. But both teams are riding winning streaks, so which one continues?
Colts are the better team. I have to take the Colts. And I was wrong
fair.
about the Colts. I thought they would have a tougher year. I'm going to be wrong about them. I didn't think they'd win 8 games. They're going to. They'd be playing a lot better than I thought they would.
Ryan Tannehill. Yes, Ryan Tannehill has taken the Titans to 2 consecutive wins, and now they are in Carolina, where it's a whole other different QB situation at that point. Will the streak end right here?
No, I'll take Titans usually play their best when they're underdogs, so I'll take the underdog.
How about the Lions? They're in Oakland. Raiders have dropped their last 2. There's about 50 projected points for this game. Which team is going to emerge with the win?
High-scoring game, Raiders win, shootout. Shootout, lots of points, yes. Lots of big plays. Raiders win, high-scoring game.
Odds makers expect another shootout between the Seahawks and Buccaneers. I think 51 projected points in that one. Tampa has lost its last 3, has to play in Seattle. Would you make it 4 in a row?
No chance to see. I don't see the Bucs winning this game. I know they stunned the Rams early in the season. I still don't know how they won that game. I have to go with the Seahawks.
All right, it is time now to announce our Caption contest winner. Take a look at the rules every week that we tweet out from our Sweat DK Twitter account, and the winner takes home $100 DK. This week, we ask you to caption a picture of Sam Darnold and Adam Gase, and the winner of the contest is Keep the Beat 929, whose caption read, "I'm seeing ghosts out there, Coach." I know, Sam. Not the first time you said that. They're asking me for candy this time. Congrats. You are now the proud owner of $100 DK. Keep the beat.
That was like
929.
a Halloween, like a trick or treat sort of like. Now they're asking me, it's trick or treaters. There goes.
I get it.
Yeah,
I totally get it, and I thought it was clever, and that's why I decided you get the $100 DK.
Yeah, because Emerson picks the winner. Just kidding. No, he doesn't. All right, we got a few more 4 o'clock games to break down, and here to help are DraftKings contributors Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow, and Jeff Ulrich.
Good to go, Jeff? You got that mic on?
Oh, yeah. We're just adjusting on the go here.
Okay, that's all good, man. We roll with the punches here, always. Green Bay's favored on the road by 3.5 points against the Chargers team that barely survived against the Bears last week. Is that number too low, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a little too low. I'm a little bit wary of Green Bay in this spot. They're a huge public bet, and you also have Green Bay going to the West Coast for a late game, which is always a little bit of a worry. It's just not really a good, just in general, in history, these are not like a high percentage of covering spots for these teams. So that being said, Green Bay has been a cover machine basically for most of the year, and the Chargers have been the complete opposite. So I think this is I'd still lean Green Bay in the spot if you're forcing me to choose. I'm going to stay away personally, but yeah, I think this number's about right.
Steve, talk to me.
Please. They'll cover no problem. They're 6-2 covering against the spread so far this season. Chargers 2-4-2. That offensive line has been an absolute mess for the Chargers. Like the Packers don't have this stellar pass rush. It's about league average right now, but the only way the Chargers are going to stay in this game if they can get something going on the ground with Melvin Gordon, with Austin Eckler. That's a very viable strategy to take against this Packers defense, but I don't see how the Packers are going to have any problem covering in this game. The Chargers are just an absolute mess right now, so I think it's too low.
Jules, Packers 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 games against AFC teams.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm very impressed that you just dug that number out of somewhere. I don't know who gave it to you, but
on
nice.
the internet, bub.
Someone slacked it to him.
So, yeah, so that makes sense. Yeah, so, I mean, look, sometimes in these spots you want to be on the sharp side and fade all this public money. Sometimes you just have to give in and go with the public and say it's too good of a spot. And this is too good of a spot for the Packers. The Chargers, going back to the start of the 2014 season, are 14-28-1 at home against the spread. They cover the spread 33% of the time at home. So it just tells us that these numbers, giving whether it be in San Diego or LA, the Chargers, however many points they deserve at home, it's just not enough. This is going to be a home game for Green Bay. They've been covering machines, and I think that they're a Super Bowl contender. They are for real, and they're going to cover in this spot.
All right, the game total for this one is set at 48.5. Too high or too low for you, Steve?
I think this is a little bit too high. Like I mentioned earlier, if the Chargers are going to try to win this game or try to generate some offense, they're going to have to do it on the ground. So that could really kind of slow the pace down in this game. It just feels like a lot of points for a Chargers team that right now, quite frankly, is struggling offensively. You know, Austin Eckler is such a good offensive weapon that they have, but he's just not getting the touches he has when Melvin Gordon wasn't on the field. I think the Packers will have no problems putting points up in this game. I just don't feel confident that the Chargers can make up the difference to hit the over in this one, so I'm going to take the under.
Jules, you taking the under too, or you want to go over?
I will lean under here. I'm not going to play it, but because Jeff will make fun of me, I will give you guys a play, and it's the Los Angeles Chargers team total under 21.5. They haven't scored more than 21 points in a game since they were in Miami earlier this season, months ago. So this is not an offense that has been scoring. Green Bay has a legitimate defense. Like Steve said, I have some of the same concerns as him. Green Bay could wind up running up the score in this one and giving you the over by scoring 31, 34, 35 points themselves. So I don't want that to happen. I'm just going to fade the Chargers here and go under 21.5 on their team total, but definitely lean under on the game total as well.
Jeff, you can still make fun of him.
Oh, I will. I'll just save it for later in the show. But look, as far as Green Bay's defense goes, like they've allowed 22 or more points in the last 5 games. I mean, it's not like they're playing at an elite level here. They don't really have an elite pass rush either. I like the over in this spot. I think this might be a little bit too low. Chargers are in kind of a do-or-die situation. Phillip Rivers could throw 50 times here. Keenan Allen's also healthy this week, so I like that. And Aaron Rodgers obviously playing at a high level. Both running backs in great spots. I think this will go over.
All right. Another smash spot for Aaron Rodgers, question mark, $6,900. Jules, question mark?
Well, I have an answer for that question. I think that he is in a fine spot. I trust the Packers offense a lot more than I trust the Chargers offense in this spot. That being said, I think there are better quarterback plays. I love the game in Oakland. Stafford's at a very similar price point. And we've got Russell Wilson as the highest price quarterback on the slate at home going against Tampa. So I like plays more, but I think Aaron Rodgers is viable.
What about you, Jeff?
Yes, exclamation point. I do think this is a very good spot. I mean, I mentioned the running backs. Chargers don't have a great run game, but I mean, Aaron Rodgers is using them so much in the pass game as well that can easily pay off that way. Davante Adams being back is the big factor here. It looks like he's going to play. And even at 80%, Davante Adams is just such a huge boost to Aaron Rodgers in the red zone. So I like this play. I do agree with Julian in this spot, though. I like Matthew Stafford probably coming in at lower ownership as well, in just a better matchup.
Steven, you throwing this guy on your roster?
I mean, it's a nice salary at $6,900, but I think there's just other plays that I'd rather be looking towards, kind of like what both these guys have been saying. Like Matt Stafford is right in that range. Like if you're paying up, Russell Wilson right there too. And you look at what the Chargers have done against opposing quarterbacks. They've allowed them to under 10 DK fantasy points in 3 of their last 4 games. But then you also have to consider who that was against. It was Joe Flacco, Delvin Hodges, and Mitchell Trubisky. Not exactly quarterbacks that usually get it done on the field anyways. The rest of the field is averaging 19.3 DraftKings fantasy points against them. So Rodgers is a fine play. Devontae Adams being in the mix is much better, but I think I'd rather be going elsewhere.
Love it. Absolutely love it. It's time now to say goodbye, though, to our friends, family, and foes on News 12 Plus in Long Island. We love you guys. We'll see y'all again next week. Same time, same place. But if you're still interested in some sports betting and fantasy advice, I highly recommend heading to the DraftKings Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter page right meow.
All right, let's move on, guys. Browns at Broncos. Despite a rough loss against New England, Cleveland is a 4-point favorite in Denver. Is that a fair number, Jeff? We did it, man.
We did it.
I think it's a little too high. Once this moved off of 3, I kind of lost interest. I just can't trust anything with the Browns right now. Not a great offensive line. The rush defense also worries me here. Denver is obviously going to try and run the ball a lot with Brandon Allen starting. I know it's tempting to go against what appears to be a bad starting quarterback, but even if the Browns win, I could see this staying within 4 points. So I don't like this one for the Browns.
Steve, do you like this one, yay or nay?
Yeah, I don't mind this one for the Browns at all. I think they're being a little undervalued because you look at over the past 3 games, they're only averaging about 14.7 points. But they've had a really tough run of defenses. And the Broncos are a tough defense. There's definitely nothing you can say about that. But they got the rookie quarterback going. Who knows? No, he's not even a rookie. Everyone keeps saying he's a rookie because he hasn't even played. So, he's a rookie to taking the field. How about we'll go with that one? But I just can't trust that the Broncos are going to generate any offense in this game. And then, obviously, we know that you can run against the Broncos. And obviously, they have one of the best running backs the Browns do in Nick Chubb. They could just literally do that all game long. So I don't mind this at -3.5 at all. So I'll take that one.
Jules, where are you going on this one?
Yeah, definitely prefer 3 that was out there earlier in the week. But I still have to lean Browns here. You do get nervous trusting the Browns because they've shown so many flaws this season. But if you take out that early turnover mess in New England, they actually played the Patriots pretty tough, limiting them to 27 points. They're getting healthier in their secondary. And we can't trust Brandon Allen. He's been around since 2016. I think that's even worse than him being a rookie. Nobody's even given him any kind of sniff. And now Joe Flacco gets hurt. The team obviously wants to go to Drew Lock, but he's still not healthy with that thumb injury. So, hey, Brandon Allen, go in there, give us a start. This guy was with the Rams in the preseason, so he doesn't even have as much familiarity with the Broncos. Threw 3 interceptions, no touchdowns in the preseason. So I think the Browns are going to give him some difficulty on defense, and I would lean with them to still get it at 4.
He's a former Jaguar as well, Julian,
yeah,
just so you know.
But
actually, based off what you just said, you have no interest in this guy in fantasy, do you?
No, I don't. I actually like betting his under for completions, his under for passing yardage. I think this guy's not very good.
All right, Jeff, what do you think? You're going to roster Brandon Allen for $4,100? What a steal.
No, is this a serious question?
Yeah, yes. This is an actual serious question.
Look,
Emerson wrote this one himself.
If you want a cheap quarterback, I would go up to Matt Moore today. At least he's got the upside with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And actually going up against a weaker Minnesota pass defense. But Brandon Allen, no thank you.
Steve, you can't see this graphic on the screen, but half of our viewers believe Brandon Allen will score between 11 and 20 fantasy points today. What do you think?
It's a big
He's going to score between 11 and 20?
Yeah, between 11 and 20, which is not terrible.
Wow, what a projection there, everybody. Thanks for giving your projection.
Hey, easy. We need them.
No, you're not playing this bum. He's 4,100. I get you need to save some salary elsewhere. Play Matt Moore if you're going to save some salary. Play Ryan Fitzpatrick. Pair him with Preston Williams, 9,000. Just do that. But thanks, for your 1 to 50 projection. That's like a Reed hot take if he's on the show.
0% believe he will score 31 or more points.
That's smart.
Okay.
Great. At least you're on the right train.
Great job, everybody.
All right. Looks like we have some viewer questions.
Okay, cool. You want to go first?
So, Steve, do you think Dallas Goedert is a good tight end against the Bears?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Zach Ertz. I know his salary is so much lower, but he's barely seeing any red zone targets. That's been going to Goedert when it goes to a tight end. So I do like him in play for today.
Jules, you agree with that?
From a tournament perspective, yeah, I think Ertz is going to be really popular in cash given the huge fall off in salary and the fact that he's returning home for the first time in a month. But from a GPP standpoint, yeah, you want to fade Ertz, and I think Goddard's a fine play there.
Jeff, you on board with this play?
I am. I like Goddard. There's a shift in momentum. I mean, he's playing more snaps. Zach Ertz seems to really just, like, after what he can do after the catch, he seems even more limited this year. So kind of off Ertz completely. I like Goddard at 3,100.
All right, good stuff, guys. The sweat rolls on here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Keep those questions coming. We'll answer them as many as we can.
Yes.
Right now.
And we have questions for them.
Yes, and we have questions for you that you can answer on Facebook. But right now, let's toss it over to Adam Kaufman and Nick Eatman.
Nick Eatman covers the Cowboys for DallasCowboys.com. I certainly don't need to tell him it has been an up and down season. We talked all about it last week during the bye week interview. You had 3 wins, 3 losses, then of course the blowout win over the Eagles to take the boys into that bye. So Dallas, though, still first in the NFC East, heading into Monday night's visit to the Meadowlands, this time to face the Giants. Nick, which direction do you think the roller coaster is going to go?
Well, I can't tell you. You know, this
should
is
still be going like this, right?
It goes up, it goes down, it loops. It might just drop you. I don't know. But, you know, it'll be interesting to see how it all works out with this team. But I have a feeling that it's going to go up, if you will, just because of the injury situation that they've had. And the bye week just couldn't have happened at a better time. They were able to get momentum with the win and do so even though they had a lot of injuries. And now they should be 100% healthy, and you know, facing a part of the schedule that is going to be some tough games, but they're winnable games. And I think if this team is as healthy as it can be and playing well, I think they're all winnable, and that includes that game in New England. I think it's winnable. It's just that, you know, the Cowboys, they really don't have a lot of room for error.
Cowboys were just in New Jersey, as mentioned, to face the Jets. That was in mid-October, so pretty recently. And it was a narrow loss, couple points. Last meeting with the Giants, big win, opening weekend. So what does Dallas need to do to earn another here this time around?
Well, you're very kind when you're talking about a narrow loss to the Jets. It's a terrible loss.
Yeah, it was bad. I'm trying to be kind.
You were, and that's really
respectful
nice.
of a guy who works for the organization. I don't want Jerry to call me and say, "What do you mean we got throttled?"
They didn't get throttled. They just lost to a very bad football team.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were banged up. There's no doubt about it. Injuries matter in this league, but you know, I have a feeling you're going to go back at some point in the season and just look to that game and be like, man. So much so I almost forgot the question you were asking about. I guess just about the Giants facing them again this year.
Yep.
Typically, you know, the Giants always play them tough, and I think it's going to be a different game just with Daniel Jones in there now, and the receivers that they have should be coming back. Barkley's, you know, looks back and ready to roll now. So I just think Monday Night Football is going to be a very tough game, much tougher than what they saw in Week 1.
Well, like you said, you expect that roller coaster to, you know, keep on going up. Doesn't matter in your mind, unless you were laying some cash, if you think they're going to cover. But for the people who are, Dallas is favored by 7 on the DK Sportsbook. Do you expect the Cowboys to cover that?
Probably not. I just, and maybe it's that game against the Jets that just kind of sticks out in my mind there. Playing at that place, I just feel like it'll be a closer game, and. You know, I do think the Cowboys are a better team, and, you know, we'll see what the bye week has done for them. But, you know, they need to start fast. They've only done it once this year. If they don't start fast, then, you know, you're hoping that they'll turn this thing on in time. And more often than not, it hasn't happened, and it hasn't been enough. So the way the Giants are playing and putting up points, I think the Cowboys are going to have to start fast. I don't know if that'll happen. I think it'll be a tough, grinded-out game, and I do think the Cowboys will find a way to win. But by a touchdown is kind of a lot in the NFL. So if I had to give advice for that, I would say probably not. But who knows?
Well, this is my favorite part of the show because it's time for me to take a break. I've worked so hard. I absolutely deserve a break. Julian Edlow and Steve Buchanan are going to exchange some flaming hot takes with each other. Ooh. Guys, take it away.
All right, thank you, Jessie. We are in a readless hot take segment today, which can only help us improve. So, Bucks, here we go. I know that you're probably, given how you've been taking things on the show so far, not going to argue too much with this one, but I'm going Matthew Stafford, not 500 yards, not a Patrick Mahomes 500 yards. That was a few too many. Matthew Stafford, 400 yards and 4 touchdowns against the Oakland Raiders on the road. I like the Lions a lot in this game. I actually think they're going to win as about plus 130 or so underdogs. I think we'll see some points out of Oakland as well, which will have Detroit keeping their foot on the gas. And what I like here is that the Lions right now remind me a little bit of the early season Falcons. Probably a better overall team, but just like when Matt Ryan has no running back and he was just slinging it every game, like at least 35 times. I think that with no running back here, basically for Detroit, Matt Stafford has no other option other than to throw the ball over 400 yards, 4 trips to the end zone. Play your Kenny Galladay's, your Danny Amendolas, your Marvin Joneses accordingly.
I would say this is a pretty mild take. Like I actually thought Reed was off of this segment, and then
at least I didn't give you something on Monday night.
Well, that's true. And then Reed usually says something like, Tyler Lockett's going to have a catch in week 9 or something like that. That's usually about the magnitude of his hot takes. This one is fine because you look at what Stafford has done over the past 2 weeks. He's actually been very close to 400 passing yards, 364, 324. He's been right in that range here. So I don't hate this one at all. Without Kerryon Johnson, the Lions are passing at a successful rate 61% of the time with Kerryon Johnson off the field. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with this take here. I wish you actually came with something a little bit hotter than that. When you said Matt Ryan could do this, that would give me a little bit of a pause because he's not even taking the field this week. So that would have been a much better hot take than this mild piece of garbage you just threw at me. So thank you for taking the time and wasting the viewers' time because I'm actually going to give you a legitimate hot take for this one. So in this one is going to be not only are the Redskins going to cover against the spread, they're actually going to go out and beat the Bills in this game in Week 9.
You just laughed during your own hot
because
take.
You know what? It's supposed to be a hot take, but I actually think this has a legitimate chance of happening. You look at Josh Allen and all the mistakes that he makes, all the turnovers he generates. He's averaging over an interception a game. And look, against the Redskins, they've allowed an average of 14.6 points over the last 3 weeks. That's against the Vikings, the undefeated 49ers, and the Dolphins. I think the Redskins have a legitimate chance of winning this game. Now, Dwayne Haskins being in the mix, that's not that great, but you can run against Buffalo. Not saying that Adrian Peterson's going to go out there and have 100-plus yards, but I think there is a path.
Definitely going to need to.
Well, he's going to need to, but it doesn't matter because defensively, they could win the game with all the mistakes that Josh Allen makes. So with the path that they have to victory here, I really think that they can actually win this game.
I am not in any way saying that the Bills are going to have a great game. I actually think Washington's defense is better than it's gotten credit for. It has 5 DK points or more going back to like week 2 or 3, and they're $1,800. I think they're a fine play, a good cash play too, against a Buffalo offense that is nothing special. The big problem here, and the issue why I cannot back this whatsoever, is Dwayne Haskins being the quarterback for Washington. He's thrown 22 passes in his career. 4 of them have been caught by the other team. He's completed like 9, I think. 12 of his 22 career passes.
Not bad.
He's completed a third as many to the other team. There's no way Haskins is going to be able to keep this one under control on the road.
My arm is raised here because I would just like to say something, if you don't mind me politely interrupting.
Go ahead.
The viewers on Facebook, the question, who has the better hot take? 83% right now siding with Julian.
Oh, that
Stafford, 400 yards and 4 touchdowns.
I get it, man. Bukes is a pretty hateable guy.
People do not like your hot take, Steven.
Okay, so 83%. So what do we have, 4 votes or 5 votes right now? Like, obviously,
I would say 5 out of 6.
Obviously, they're going to side with Julian because it's a safer play. Stop being cowards. Actually, take a stance for once in your life and take a hot take that actually
did something plausible this week because usually I come on here and go with something ridiculous like your take,
and
then you guys make fun of me for losing it. So
you take
I have
the
a reasonable hot take. It's still hot enough.
No, it's not.
And it's going to happen.
That's like yelling at Reed because he said that, what was it, the Panthers were going to win when they were like 3-point underdogs or whatever it was last week.
And then they lost by 40.
That was pretty much the magnitude of your take. So yes, everybody's going to side with you because they feel bad. They think your fashion's terrible, your take is terrible.
I mean, I wear a better shirt than you every week.
Woo, we got some movement here. Steve, you're up to 29%.
I love it. I love this voting system. I absolutely love it. Emerson, it's back to you.
Is that it?
I threw it back to you.
I
didn't know done.
That was
the Redskins.
I didn't know if you were going to try to make like one more argument and try to get up to 30%, you know? But
Bills
that's okay, buddy.
Bills by 17.
Wow, that's just not going to happen at all.
All right,
that's
guys,
so asinine.
stop talking. Let me start talking, please.
Sorry.
I've got Greg and Jeff with me now to tell us who they're going to fade on the main slate. Jeffrey, who are you staying away from in the 1 o'clock games?
Yeah, 1 o'clock games is pretty easy for me. Mark Walton is coming in with some actual ownership on this slate. Like, people are actually going to be trusting a Miami Dolphins player. But the thing is, it's the Miami Dolphins player in the worst matchup. I mean, the New York Jets, the one thing they actually do is they hold up pretty good against the run. They're allowing under 4 yards per carry in this situation. I know Mark Walton is kind of in a workhorse role, but I really feel like if the Dolphins are going to move the ball, it's going to be because of Ryan Fitzpatrick throwing it through the air. So Mark Walton coming in at like over 15% ownership. I know he's cheap, but it's still a pretty easy fade for me.
Greg, 1 o'clock fade. Who you got?
So Jonnu Smith, he played pretty well last week, and tight end's a tough position to fill, so I think people might go click on his name. But the issue is this is a way more difficult matchup for him than he had last week. Last week he got to match up against the Buccaneers, one of the worst pass defense in the league. This week he's going up against the Panthers, much tougher spot. I still don't trust Ryan Tannehill, so I think this is a good spot to get away from him.
All right, so who are you steering clear of in the 4 o'clock hour, Greg?
Yeah, so Aaron Jones, actually something Jeff talked about earlier about not trusting the Packers in this matchup. I agree with him. And the other thing, too, is I don't trust the workload of Aaron Jones on a week-to-week basis. The pricing is really odd here for the Packers running backs. Aaron Jones is one of the most expensive running backs on the slate, and Jamal Williams is also $6,000. Like, both of them are really expensive. I don't want anything to do with either of them. If we look at Aaron Jones' game log this year, he's had a few big games, but he's also had a bunch of duds in there. So I don't want to chase him after a big game. I think he's better to go after when he's lower owned and is coming off a bad game.
Jeffrey, talk to me.
I want to fade Chris Carson. I mean, again, another running back that's sort of coming in with quite a bit of ownership. And you just look at the matchup and you scratch your head and you wonder why. Tampa Bay's allowed 3 rushing touchdowns the entire year. They're a complete funnel defense. They lead the league in yards per carry against, which means they're giving up the fewest yards per carry per game just in the entire league. So this is the spot where you expect Russell Wilson to go off. I know Seattle's got like a 28 implied team total, or actually it's actually more because the total's gone up. But I really expect this is a situation where Russell Wilson's going to throw the ball into the end zone probably 3 or 4 times. Maybe one goes to Chris Carson, but I really feel you look at that range, I'd rather go with the workload of Nick Chubb. So I'm okay fading Chris Carson in that game.
Okay, you two hang out. You both are going to make it rain with your must-start plays of the day right after Pat Mayo gives us his Week 9 sleepers.
Hello, everybody. If you missed the Pat Mayo experience, like it is live at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time every single Sunday, I don't know what's wrong with you. You got to start tuning into that. But hey, we're now on the sweat, and we're talking about some low-owned plays, maybe some cheap plays for your DraftKings lineup in Week 9. Like the world knows, obviously, you use Jalen Samuels this week. He could be owned in 50% of rosters. So if you're playing more than one lineup, just use him in all of your lineups. He's essentially a free square. If he busts, he busts. But if he goes off, you're going to lose this week if you don't have him. The only other one, pay down running back that you could potentially go on to, or maybe even use both of them, is Mark Walton at $4,500. You use those two guys together, then you could basically pay for whoever else you want on the slate. Christian McCaffrey's $10,000, not a problem. If you use one or both of those guys, Walton projects out, around a little bit less than Jalen Samuels. He's $500 more expensive, but no one is going to use him because everyone is using Jalen Samuels. So that is something to watch out for. But lock in Jalen Samuels, be on your way. At defense, it's very clear that if you do want to pay down for the Skins defense at $1,800, then you're going against Josh Allen. Josh Allen loves getting sacked. He loves turning the ball over even when the Bills win. So if that's where you want to save your money, that's not a bad place to do it. But if you use Samuels and the Redskins defense, that's probably going to be a lot of a common build this week. So just pay attention to that. You might have to pivot off somewhere else. I got a list of pivot wide receivers that you can go to. At the tight end position, it does seem like Jonnu Smith at $3,800, $37, $38, whatever he is. High 3,000s is where you want to go at tight end if you're going to pay down. There is the potential someone like Noah Fant with Jeff Heuerman out could end up in a nice situation against the Browns because they're going to lock down everything else on that offense. But that's really the two pay down situations that you want to go with. Maybe try to pay up at tight end because the options are not bountiful. If Chris Herndon is officially active against the Dolphins, maybe you can go to Ryan Griffin. He's cheap. No one's going to use him. And he has developed into a red zone presence. Just the tight ends in general on the Jets when Sam Darnold is under center have been a viable option. It's not a high volume option, but a high upside option because of the touchdown potential. At quarterback, everyone's paying up for Matt Stafford. I get it, but I'd rather pay down a little bit and go with Jameis. If you really want to take a shot, that Jets and Dolphins game, just reeks of shootout because both those defenses are atrocious. Most people will go to Darnold. Why not go with Ryan Fitzpatrick? It's a revenge situation. You can choose between like him and Trubisky if you're really trying to save money at the bottom end. And the glorious thing about the Fitzpatrick stack is if you use Fitzpatrick, Preston Williams, and Devontae Parker, or either or, it's super cheap. You put them in with the Skins and Jalen Samuel, you actually can afford like $7,000 for the rest of your players. That's an interesting way if you're playing multiple lineups. I wouldn't recommend it for cash games, but no one is really going to do it. And we know that Fitzpatrick has millionaire maker upside because he's won people like 5 millionaire makers over the past 3 years. So if it is a good enough matchup, which this passing matchup is for the Dolphins this week, it is something to look at. Now, this list of viable, cheap-ish wide receivers that I think that you can kind of mine here. Jarvis Landry is one of them. Odell Beckham's been dealing with this groin injury all season long. The Browns are favored in this game, and Chris Harris is likely to lock down Odell here in this matchup. So Jarvis Landry is due for a breakout week. DJ Moore with Curtis Samuel banged up is sub $5,000. Could be on the cheaper end. If we talk about the builds that we talked about a bit earlier, you don't need to go all the way down to the bottom of a receiver. You can have someone who's just less than $5,000. I think DJ Moore is a decent option. Robbie Anderson in that same game. I talked about Preston Williams. I talked about Devontae Parker. I think they're both in nice matchups. You could use a combination of any of those guys, or even include Zach Pascal now that T.Y. Hilton is going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks. It's not a great matchup against Pittsburgh. Pascal has been used in the red zone. A lot of people will gravitate towards Ebron or Doyle and just not think about Zach Pascal, but he could be in share for probably 30% market share in the Colts offense. It might be a lot more running than passing, but if the touchdown upside is there for him, no ownership is going to come along with it. That might be a chance you want to take in your DraftKings lineup this week. That'll do it for Pat Mayo. You can always catch my show on demand on the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast. Sunday show is already up right now if you got to go bolt somewhere, but I recommend you continuing watching The Sweat. Back to you guys.
We got the whole gang here. DraftKings contributors Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow, Greg Ehrenberg, Jeff Ulrich. Y'all ready to make it rain?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah,
okay.
you are.
All right, need your locks for week 9. Jeff, who is going to make it rain for you?
Let's make it rain with Nick Chubb this week, Jesse. Look, I know I'm kind of skeptical on the Browns and just obviously they're hard to trust right now, but Nick Chubb is not hard to trust. He's basically leading the league, leading running backs in yards per carry outside of Raheem Mostert. He gets like 5 carries a game. I mean, this is an explosive player. He's a big play waiting to happen. The Broncos are starting a terrible QB this week. Browns are still favored by -4. I think this is a great spot to deploy Nick Chubb. He's averaging over 20 carries over his last 4 or 5 games. He's still averaging 3 receptions per game. Yeah, I think this price is more than fair for Nick Chubb. I'm looking for a big week.
Is there anyone on this handsome panel who does not recommend starting Nick Chubb?
Raise your hand if you hate Nick Chubb.
Not at all.
Okay,
No?
everybody agrees.
That's what I thought.
Oh, wow, dude. Look at that tough guy, man.
Let's get a poll up. Is Jeff right? Like, oh, wow, what a
Hey,
play by
actually, we
Jeff.
may do one more poll before the show's over
do
in 8
it.
minutes.
Do it.
Steve, go ahead. Who's your lock?
Yeah, so it's going to be Matt Stafford. Not going off of Julian's hot take because that was expected anyways, but this is somebody who's thrown at least 30 times every single game this season. When Kerryon Johnson is off the field, like I mentioned earlier, they're passing 61% of the time, and we think this is going to be a shootout. We think both the Raiders and the Lions will go back and forth against each other, and if the Lions are not if the Lions are not running in this game, they're just going to be passing a ton. You like the matchups for all their receivers, whether it's Galladay, Amendola, Marvin Jones. There's a lot to like in this matchup here, so it's going to be Matt Stafford for me, and nobody's going to say it's a bad play.
Well, 75% of the audience, or now 60% of the audience, disagrees with you.
Okay, you know what?
And says
People hate you.
That's great.
He's such a hateable guy. It makes sense.
You know what's great? People can hate me, but the check comes every week, so what the hell do I care?
Yeah, that's
Every
true.
month.
That's true. Also, maybe this is reverse psychology.
Dude, Jules is over there like just slamming a button. I wonder if he's the only one.
Julian's the person who's voting.
Nobody wants to know what kind
I'll
of
tell you what,
buttons
though.
I'm
If you don't
pressing.
think Stafford's a good play today, then don't even play. How about that?
So,
Do you guys think Stafford's a good play? Julian, do you want to comment?
yeah, I said he's going to have
Yeah,
400
he
yards.
wants
and
it.
4
Okay,
touchdowns.
great. Well, perfect.
It's more of like Greg. Like, do you agree? I mean, because you mentioned it's a whole game that you could stack. I think everyone actually is on board with Stafford.
Yeah, I like Stafford a lot also, but I would like to make a plea to the audience. I think we should make this an ongoing bid every week, no matter what Steve says. Everybody go vote against him on the polls. I think that's the way to go. I think that's the best.
Gets him really wound up.
At here.
Emerson, I need a poll update. Let's hear it.
Okay, I don't see the number currently,
Bring it
but
up.
I would assume it's a large percentage in favor against whatever you're saying.
Okay, who's going to make it rain for you, Greg?
All right, so I'm going way off the board here. Very low on play that I think is upside. Melvin Gordon. So the Chargers have made a coaching change. They fired Wisenhunt as the offensive coordinator. Now, what do we know about the Chargers? This team is the biggest full of donks team in the league. They have no clue what they're doing, and I think that turning over the offensive coordinator position, the number one thing that I think this team will look at is saying, like, how do we make our team better? What can we change? And I just think people are going to say, let's give Melvin Gordon the ball more. It's not what I would do if I was in that position, but I think it's something that they could do. And Gordon's somebody who we've seen have a lot of upside in the past. For his price, I think it makes a lot of sense.
It's like the Costanza theory. I like this one. They basically think of what a normal team would do and then do the opposite of it. That's what the Chargers will probably do. I kind of like Melvin Gordon this week.
I don't.
Okay.
How's that? I don't like it. I mean,
Okay.
since Gordon has come back, we haven't seen him go over 32 rushing yards. And you got to think that the Chargers are going to be playing behind in this game. If that's the case, this is going to be an Austin Eckler game. I don't see this being a Melvin Gordon game. Eckler is still the guy they want to go to. When they're down, when they need a pass out of the backfield, it's still Austin Eckler. I don't see how Gordon ends up carving out a good game here. If by some chance the Chargers are ahead, then sure, Greg, I'll definitely go on board with that one. But I don't see that happening. I see the Packers absolutely dismantling the Chargers in this game. So I think that's a terrible play. Put a pull up for that one. Let's see how that one goes.
One thing I'll say about that, though, Melvin Gordon's only 5,000. Walton is going to be a chalk play.
He's very cheap.
Walton's going to be a chalk play at 4,500. The idea that there's going to be a massive ownership difference for about the same price, like, I'm just looking for pivots in that range because there are a lot of expensive plays we want to get up to. And this is a guy who could be 2-3% in GPPs. He's so much cheaper than he's been historically. I'm not saying I think it's likely that he has a big game, but if I'm just like looking at the opportunity cost and the plus minus, the potential ceiling for the ownership, to me, that's where I think he's worth the upside. It's not that I'm saying like, oh, he's definitely going to have a good game.
I would disagree about Walton being chalk. If you're in that range, it's Jalen Samuels, without a doubt. That's who's going to be the chalk play.
Yeah, well, he is, except Walton's still going to get a decent amount of ownership, and certainly a lot more than Gordon's going to get in the same range. So
Fair.
I don't think Walton's going to have zero ownership. I guess it's just more debate on what ownership does somebody have to be considered a chalk play, and he's going to have decent ownership today.
Fair.
Jules, would you like to share with us your Week 9 lock?
So I was down for Nick Chubb here for pretty much all the reasons that Jeff said. So then I was going to pivot over to Matthew Stafford since someone stole my pick, and then Bucks stole that pick. So yeah, I love Nick Chubb and Matt Stafford, but since we've already talked about them, I'll make the case for Christian McCaffrey. I think people are going to stop paying up for him because he hit that $10,000 mark, but the receivers on this slate are very affordable. There just aren't the bit like Hopkins, Julio, Thomas. All these big names aren't there where somebody every week is starting their wide receiver pool with a guy that's like $8,000. And with that not there, I think there's ways with Jalen Samuels, with a Derek Carr, with a Danny Amendola to go with Matt Stafford. There's ways that we can afford a $10,000 running back on this slate, and I think some people are going to maybe be afraid to do that because of the price tag. And take your Le'Veon Bells, your Nick Chubbs, your Aaron Jones in that 7 to 8K range. So obviously, Chubb's a guy that I like a lot. Stafford's a guy that I like a lot. But I do think that the value has opened to make room for 10K if you need it for Christian McCaffrey. And he's as safe a play as we've had all season.
I mean, you take out that game against the Buccaneers, his floor is basically 30 DK fantasy points. So he's right in that realm, even at the 10K range.
All right, guys, good stuff. We're going to hit some viewer questions right now. Brian O'Neill on Facebook asks, OBJ at 6,600, should that be a steal against the Broncos? Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm done with this Broncos passing offense. This is too hard to trust. Chris Harris is still there. I just, no, basically. I can't even make a case for it anymore.
Jules, Mark Andrews or Mark Walton?
Ugh.
Right?
Maybe somebody else if you can. Mark Walton's going to be, I don't know about chalky, but like Greg said, a little bit popular. And he just does nothing with his touches. They're like empty. So I guess Andrews, but I don't love that either. Maybe try something else.
Okay.
Brate or Olsen, Steve?
I would probably go with Brate. I know Olsen is almost playing on every single snap here, but without O.J. Howard, Brate's going to also be on the field just as much. And we've seen Winston go to his tight ends in the red zone, so I like Brate.
All right, Greg, Darnold or Winston? I have both Crowder and Brate. This is a 50-50, is what I'm being told.
All right, so that's Winston for me. I think there's huge upside in Winston today. I think it's a great game to stack. I think it's really high scoring. The Bucs are probably going to be playing from behind. They're going to have to throw to get back into the game. Winston, he's always a boom-bust option, but I think he's one of the highest upside QBs on the slate.
Yep. Cool.
Jules, Eckler or Samuels?
I mean, I like Eckler, but if we're talking DK, Samuels is obviously the value. You got to play him in cash. You pivot off of him in tournaments, and for season long, you got to go with the floor on touches for Samuels.
Oh, Jeff, I got to ask you this. I feel bad for this young lady. Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold?
Who sees more ghosts?
I would go Darnold. Just feel like it's a good spot for Robbie Anderson. One big play could really get Darnold to value. So Robbie Anderson, Sam Darnold stack definitely in play.
Greg, Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen?
Lamar Jackson, he's just been so good for fantasy purposes this year and all the rushing upside. Josh Allen, I can never quite trust him just because he has some duds. He's a much better fantasy quarterback than real-life quarterback, but Jackson's still the better fantasy and real-life QB.
Jules, Godwin or Evans?
Godwin. He's been the more consistent option all season despite Evans' big game recently.
All right, well, that's going to do it for our show. Please go enjoy your day. We'll see you tomorrow at 6 p.m.